Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Inauguration Day, our border was secure. The Trump policies had slowed illegal immigration to a trickle, and it was no coincidence that working Americans saw their wages grow faster than any time in 40 years, and the income gap between rich and poor was actually narrowing for the first time in decades. Well, that afternoon, Joe Biden changed all of that. The Democrats deliberately initiated the largest illegal mass migration in history. In the last 27 months, they have deliberately admitted 2 million illegal aliens into our country. That is larger than the entire population of the state of Nebraska. And while the Border Patrol was overwhelmed, another 1.5 million known gotaways entered as well. That is an additional illegal population larger than the entire state of Hawaii. All of this in just 27 months. Well, for Americans, this means classrooms packed with non-English speaking students. It means hospitals flooded with illegal aliens demanding uncompensated care. It means violent criminal cartels and gangs introduced into our communities and sanctuary policies that make deportation of convicted criminal aliens all but impossible in most cases. It means a fentanyl epidemic claiming 300 American lives a day, the equivalent of 2 737 jetliners crashing every day. It means suppressed wages for working families as the labor market is flooded with cheap illegal labor. A federal judge recently described the Democrats' policy as, quote, akin to posting a flashing "come in, we're open" sign at the southern border. For the growing millions responding to this invitation, it means 2,000 have died that we know of under hideous conditions. Countless thousands have been forced into indentured servitude to the cartels, and thousands of unaccompanied children have been abandoned to sexual and labor exploitation under horrific conditions. H.R. 2640, the Border Security and Enforcement Act, combines legislation from Mr. Biggs, Mr. Roy, Mr. Calvert, Mr. Carter of Texas, Mr. Johnson of Louisiana, Mr. Tiffany, Mr. Moran, and myself to restore the successful Trump policies and remove the rewards and incentives that the Democrats have used to entice millions of people to violate our nation's sovereignty. Title I reforms the asylum process to deter fraudulent asylum claims from aliens, including economic migrants, and assures that aliens granted asylum are truly being persecuted by their government. Title II stops rewarding fraudulent asylum claims with automatic admission to our country, free goods and services, cash payments, and indefinite residency and work authorization. It enforces the existing law that asylum claimants be detained, or as an alternative, it mandates restoring the Trump Remain in Mexico policy and safe third country agreements. Title III fixes the disastrous Flores settlement that rewards illegal aliens who rent or buy children to pose as a family unit to avoid detention. Instead, it keeps legitimate families together as they await adjudication of their asylum claims in detention or in Mexico. Title IV requires that an unaccompanied child be immediately and safely returned to their home, as we already do for unaccompanied children from Mexico and Canada, rather than to allow them to be trafficked and abandoned and then exploited in our country. If a child shows up at your door, you've got a moral obligation to get them home safely, not drop them off at a sweatshop or worse down the street. Our government's essentially doing that right now, and it's morally reprehensible. Title V applies the same penalties for visa overstays as we do for illegal border crossings. It's a misdemeanor to cross the border illegally, a felony to cross it repeatedly, and yet only an infraction to overstay a visa. A visa is just as important as a border, and the visa holder's violation should be treated the same. Prior to the Democrats opening our southern border to millions of illegal immigrants, nearly half of the illegal population of this country simply overstayed their visas. Title VI ends the abuse of parole authority to circumvent immigration law. Parole is inherently a case-by-case review based on individual circumstances in which the rigors of the law are inappropriate. Parole by category is not parole. It's a new law that should be considered and passed by Congress in a nation that respects the rule of law. In 27 months, the Democrats have allowed over 1 million migrants into the country through this abuse. Finally, Title VII enforces existing law that makes it illegal to hire an illegal alien. It requires U.S. employers to use the quick and easy electronic program known as E-Verify to verify the employment eligibility of their new hires. To bring order to the border and to resurrect respect for U.S. immigration law, the Border Security and Enforcement Act of 2023 is essential. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlemen, yield